Welcome to our 10th episode of WrenchWay Weekly, where we talk about the industry's hot topics, highlight the voice of technicians, and educate shops and dealerships to help them improve the industry. This week's topic was a really popular one, as we kind of expected. It's always a hot button topic, and it's cool to see kind of this grow in the responses that we get, really kind of starting to get really good. There's some really good responses. So the question for this week was, should shops allow technicians to do side work? Of course, there's a lot of very different opinions about this, and the feedback was interesting in that it was overwhelmingly yes answers, right? So 80% of WrenchWay Insiders responded that yes, technicians should be allowed to do side work. And we had about 15% that said no, and we actually had 5% that were in the middle, even though we didn't have an answer for kind of in between. But they talked about in those 5 that, you know what, yes, they should be able to do it, but it's on the side, not in the shop. A couple big points out of this, and I'll give my thoughts after I kind of talk through some answers. But really, I think that the number one concern, which I was kind of surprised by with shop owners and management, was the legal responsibility and the worries that if somebody were to go out and do a side job and something goes bad, who's responsible for it, right? And there was a really good response that we had from a respondent, and I won't mention the name, but he said, not at the shop. If you have a guy having to do side work to make it, then I find that I really need to look at that. Some guys are just gearheads through and through and like working in the driveway in the evenings. But if that is the only way a guy can pay their mortgage, then there's a real problem, either with his productivity or with his lifestyle. Some may say it's none of their concern, but knowing what's going on with you guys is important. A guy that is staying up at night and on the weekends to do side work will have comeback issues. You have to rest. I thought out of all of the comments, that was maybe one of the most interesting ones to me, in that this shop manager really put a lot of thought into the response and really looking at the problem itself, which is really the way that I would view it, right? If somebody's having to do side work, why are they having to do side work? Is it truly that they like working on performance cars or they like doing something like that? To me, that doesn't bother me at all. If they're having to do it to make it, and the shop owner's frustrated or the shop manager's frustrated that they're doing that side work, but maybe not paying them as well as they could, there might be a simple solution there where you can sit down and talk about it and try to figure out ways that, you know what, you can come here, you can do the work, and we'll pay you enough to where you're not going to have to worry about doing that side work. And then hopefully the focus stays on the shop. And we had a lot of the yes answers from technicians say, listen, I've got a really good side business. It doesn't interfere with what we do on a daily basis at work. And I think for the most part, even the managers responded that they were okay with that. You know, there was one respondent that talked about if I work at a Porsche shop and somebody has a Honda, there's really no conflict of interest there. And so, or if it's friends and family, that was a pretty common response, was that, you know, if you've got friends and family that you want to work on their vehicles, there's different avenues to do that. There were, to my surprise, some shops that actually allowed side work in their shops, as long as it was after hours and it wasn't impacting the normal day-to-day business. And, you know, I think there's some value there as well to somebody. So first and foremost, from a management standpoint, I think it's important that you know why they're doing side work, right? Is it because they need to pay bills? There was another respondent that talked about how they had 2 kids or 3 kids to put through private school, and they needed to work the extra time to pay for that private school. So a lot of really interesting responses, and I thought very well thought out. Some of it with the liability issues of doing side work. And I actually think for another episode of WrenchWay Weekly, we might be able to dive into that a little bit. What are the insurance ramifications of you doing side work? And will that impact if somebody loses their brakes and gets in a fatal car accident, are you responsible? This is stuff you should know if you're doing that. So I think it's really, really important. I've got one story as to why shop managers are weary of letting people do side work, right? And this is just my perspective in general. I worked at a shop while I was going to tech school, and it was a major chain. I'm not going to mention names, but we had a guy there who, funny guy. I remember he had some great stories, but he was shady, right? Like, he was not a good person when it came to doing business ethically. And so what he would do is he would bring a car in for, say, an alignment, and it would have some loose suspension parts, and he would then give the estimate to the customer. In this shop, they allowed the techs to talk directly to the customers, and he would give them a price, and then the customer would say, "Oh, that's expensive." He would come back then and say, "Hey, if you do this at my place, and you pay me in cash, I will do it for, it'd be like half the price." So he even had business cards made up to give these people, and had a side business that wasn't just making it, like, he was blowing it out of the water. He's making a lot of money on the side, but he was doing it in a really, really poor way. He was definitely doing the side work in a non-ethical way, which I don't condone whatsoever. I don't think that's the right way to do business. I think there's a right way to do this, and that's not it. So when we talk about this, some of the other responses, and I keep going back to the responses because they were so good. They were so good, and there were so many of them. But with the responses, one of the techs said, it's inevitable that you're going to have techs do side work. And I agree. I really, really agree. And I think there's some people that you could pay them as much as you want, and they're still going to do side work just because they like kind of wrenching. They like being that gearhead, right? And then there's some people that are doing it because they need to pay their bills. And so the importance of having a conversation with the tech to understand, why is it that you're doing side work, understanding kind of the outline of how they do their side work. If they're taking customers from you, that's obviously not a great way to do it. But if you can have a candid conversation between the technician and the manager and just put it on the table, right? Hey, I'm doing side work. It's for friends and family. This is kind of the hours that I work. From a technician's standpoint, you need to be upfront with this, right? And from a manager standpoint, don't be skeptical that they're lying to you. Just really, hopefully you've built a relationship with that tech enough to where you can have that honest conversation. But to me, that's where we have a lot of issues with side work, is that distrust from side to side, right? I think a lot of times managers don't think they're getting the whole story from a tech. And a lot of times the tech doesn't want to tell a manager because they think they're going to get their hand slapped and they're not going to be able to do side work anymore. And, if it is that person that needs to do that work in order to pay the bills, that's a real problem, right? That's a real problem. So, like a lot of things that we talk about, I think conversation can go a long ways with this. Managers have to be open to it. You're not being realistic if you think nobody's doing side work. There's a lot of people that have different drivers as to why they want to do side work. I would ask that you don't be naive enough to think that it doesn't happen. It happens everywhere. And even in some of the best paying shops, there's people that do the side work. So, and from the technician side, don't be shady about it. Don't steal work from the customer or from the shop. Obviously, they're trying to do their best to drive revenue, drive profits to the business so that they can pay you more. And I think if you both have that same objective and you're on the same page, hopefully there's a really nice understanding of what side work is allowed, and an understanding from the management side as to why a technician would want to do side work in the first place. As always, thank you so much to all of our WrenchWay Insiders for the feedback that you gave. It is really cool to see this thing grow. We've had it grow exponentially. This is our 10th episode, and each episode we just keep gaining and gaining and gaining. And what that does is it really gives a voice to the collective group, right? You're not always going to maybe agree with the results, but I think it gives you a consensus of what is out there. And like in this case, 80% of people think that side work should be allowed. Even some of the people that said no weren't an exact no, right? They had some kind of guidelines behind that, and it talks about how we need to have some level of structure around it. So thank you to all of the WrenchWay Insiders. This is great stuff, great content that we're able to hopefully educate not only our customers, but the industry with, and we'll look forward to doing more of that. So as you know, every week we give away a prize, and for all of our WrenchWay Insiders. So if you sign up for WrenchWay Insiders, we draw from somebody that gave an answer, and we give a gift. And so this week's prize is a $50 Carhartt gift card. We're getting you warmed up for winter, and there's no better way of doing that than Carhartt. So we'll give away that right now. This week's winner is Ryan Ketty. I hope I'm saying your last name right, Ryan. It's Kette. Ryan Ketty, congratulations on the $50 gift card. Hopefully you're able to use it to stock up for winter. For next week, we're kind of going back to the tool side, and we're going to be giving away a Sonic Tools sample kit from our friends at Sonic Tools. Great company. If you haven't heard of them yet, they've got some really cool kits and just some really cool tool storage. So Sonic Tools sample kit will be next week's prize. If you'd like to win the Sonic Tools sample kit, you can sign up to become a WrenchWay Insider at wrenchway.com/WrenchWay-Insiders. Or you can follow WrenchWay on LinkedIn or Facebook or YouTube, and we'll throw out the link to this week's survey there as well. You can also just go straight out to wrenchway.com, go to the resources tab, and sign up to be an insider through there. Once you fill it out, it's super easy, super anonymous. Nobody knows your answer. You'll automatically be entered to win this prize, so there's no need to sign up. We actually just kind of pull it from a random selection of who answered. For next week's topic, kind of really talking about how we improve some shops from the standpoint of profitability, right? And excuse me. So next week's topic is, do you think that we as an industry need to improve how we sell our diagnostic time to customers? I am asking this question because I think it can help us a lot in terms of getting what we need to make the shops profitable, to be able to honestly pay the techs more, offer more benefits, whatever it is. But I think it will be interesting to hear what, not only if you think that we can improve the industry by how we sell diagnostic time, but maybe some ways, some best practices that you could share that we could share on next week's WrenchWay Weekly. Love to hear your feedback on it. Please make sure to sign up for WrenchWay Insiders. We will be sending out an email to our WrenchWay Insiders this afternoon asking for input. And as I mentioned, we'll be putting a link up everywhere else on social. And so make sure you follow WrenchWay, subscribe to us on YouTube so you can see the results of all of these surveys that we're putting out. I think there's a lot of good information out there, and as we keep growing and growing and growing this, the responses and the answers and everything just starts to get so much value, so much better, and we're able to kind of use it to help everybody out. So thanks again for tuning in. Really appreciate it. We'll see you next week.